Hello everybody and welcome back to Let's Play 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors. Last time, the team of Junpei, Santa, June, and Ace made it through the cargo room. We also learned a little more about Santa and that he has a little sister. That he's trying to be the best person he can be for her. It's pretty deep stuff. Anyway, today, what lies beyond the cargo room. The hallway that left the cargo room headed straight toward the stern. Junpei and the other three proceeded down it, silently. Some distance along it, a large room opened up on the left-hand side. Oh yeah, there was also a gun that was found last time. A revolver. It had 6 bullets in it. It seems to be pretty important. It looked familiar. An iron grate covered each of the elevators. Junpei and his companions drew to a stop and began to discuss what their next move should be. We've seen this elevator before. We got off the one on the left just a little while ago. Then we went through the number 6 door and that took us to the engine room. Yes, after that we passed through the cargo room. And now we're back here. In other words, we made a loop. We're back where we started. Junpei approached the elevator. Gently, he pushed a triangular button on the wall next to it. A moment passed. The elevator door opened. And shut. Pushing the button had apparently restored power to the elevator. The elevator was now functional. What do we do? Should we return to the C deck? No, this hallway keeps going. Even if we did end up going back, I think we should see what's down there first. I agree. Let's go. Their decision made, Junpei and his companions left the elevators behind and continued down the hallway. Sometime later, Santa, who had been walking several paces in front of the rest, suddenly stopped. Set in the wall in front of him was a door. So far as Junpei could see, there was no other way to proceed. It was the door or nothing. Alright, let's open it. Junpei took a deep breath, readied himself, then grabbed the doorknob and pulled the door open. He paused for a moment, then stepped through into the room. And there he saw the number that had hung over their heads since they'd woken up. 9. Like the numbers on every other door, this one too was a rough shape made of red paint. Its door was set into the back wall of the room. Junpei leapt toward it with a sudden burst of hopeful energy. It was a large double door, heavy and full of solemn importance. He grabbed hold of the door handle and shook. Nothing, but he hadn't expected it to open. The red sat on the wall next to the door. Its screen read, "Vacant." Finally, they'd found it. Junpei felt himself overwhelmed by a torrent of emotion. At last, they'd found the exit, but cold gripped his heart, and he knew all too well why. As he stood, frozen, unsure of what to think or feel. Jumpy! Look! Behind you! He spun around and couldn't believe what he saw. It was a door with the number 9 written across it. Was there a second door? Why? Junpei's voice was barely audible, even to himself. He stumbled toward the second door as if somehow compelled. It was a small single door. It sat in the starboard corner of the room, on the same wall as the door they'd enter from, but in the opposite corner. 9. There was no mistaking it. A red sat on the wall next to the door as well. Junpei shook the door handle pointlessly and muttered to himself, "Why? Why the hell are there 2 doors? It was Santa who answered. There were always 2 doors. Just think about it. Zero never said there was only 1 door with 9 on it. It is hidden, but an exit can be found. Seek a way out. Seek a door that carries a 9. Of course, we just assumed that there was only 1. After all, why would there be more than 1? Oh man. Jeez. Junpei was stunned. Zero's trick had taken him completely by surprise. There were 2 doors. That meant that all 9 people who had met at the central staircase could escape and leave no one behind. Now, the reason for the bracelet numbers being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 was clear. Divided in 2, the digital root for both teams would be 9. For instance, 1, 2, 7, 8, and 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, the digital root for both teams would be 9. Or 2, 3, 4, 9, and 1, 5, 6, 7, 8, the digital root would be also 9. There are many other workable combinations, but they all ended the same way, with a digital root of 9. What did that mean? The answer was quite simple. From the very beginning, the nonary game was designed to save all 9 people. Zero hadn't been lying. Zero had never said there was only 1 door. But anyone who'd found themselves in the game would have assumed that was the case. Fights would have broken out. One team would likely betray or deceive the other. Someone might be hurt. Someone might get killed. But eventually they would reach the room Junpei now found himself in and realize the pointlessness of whatever violence they'd visited upon each other. There were 2 doors. No need to kill each other. They'd understand and be appalled, overwhelmed with guilt at what they'd done. Perhaps that was the purpose of the game. That was how the nonary game was meant to be played. Fortunately, they hadn't started to fight one another. At least not yet. But if one misstep was made, if the wrong mistakes happened, the stakes would rise and the noose would tighten. The thought of it sent a chill down his spine. So, what are we going to do, Junpei? A voice broke through Junpei's frantic thoughts. Santa's voice. He brought Junpei back to his senses. No use worrying about the future. He needed to figure out what they were going to do next. There were 4 people in the room. Ace, Santa, Junpei, and June. Their bracelet numbers were 1, 3, 5, 6. The digital root would be 6. In other words, the 4 of them couldn't open a door with the number 9. But what if there were only 3? Could door 9 be opened with 3 of them? It took him no time at all to determine the answer. There was only one combination of 3 people that would give a digital root of 9. 1 plus 3 plus 5 equals 9. That would mean... No. We gotta go back. That wasn't a possibility he was willing to consider. Santa and Ace agreed. Yep. I agree. We cannot leave June behind. Junpei let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Are you sure? I don't mind staying. June's body betrayed her true feelings. Her eyes were wet with the beginnings of tears and her legs shook. It's okay. There's no way we'd leave you behind. Santa had said what Junpei had known the moment he realized which 3 people could go through the door. Besides, I'd rather drown at the bottom of the ocean than escape with this sausage fest. Maybe I'll get to go to Atlanta. Are you sure you don't mean Atlantis? Oh, right. Yeah, Atlanta is kind of different from Atlantis. Just, kinda. Perhaps it was the sudden reassurance that no one wanted to leave June behind, but Junpei laughed harder than he had in some time. Santa and Ace smiled. You guys. June blinked tears from her eyes and bit her lip. She didn't seem to know what else to say. Very well. Best we head back to C deck then. We should be able to take the elevator we passed earlier. Perhaps Clover, Seven, and Lotus will have returned from door 1. Even as Ace spoke, they knew finding the others wouldn't improve the situation. There was no way they could be split into teams that could both go through the doors. Ace knew it. They all knew it. But there was nothing else they could do. They would find the other 3 and search for another solution. Alright, let's go. Ace looked at all 3 of them, then turned and headed through the door. Santa and June followed. Junpei started toward the door, then stopped. He'd been too busy with other concerns to notice the room itself. It didn't seem terribly important now, but what exactly was it? Junpei looked around the room for the first time, noticing the things that weren't doors with 9 on them. A red carpet ran between 2 columns of wooden benches that ran the length of the room. The carpet began at the large set of double doors and ran toward the bow, or bow, however you pronounce that part of the ship. Toward? Junpei wasn't sure. Was it an altar, perhaps? There was a small rectangular alcove at the end of the carpet, and inside the alcove was a raised platform. Resting on top of the platform was a coffin. A coffin. A coffin. What on earth was a coffin doing in a place like that? Before Junpei had time to answer that question. Hey, Junpei! The hell are you doing? Let's move! Santa's voice echoed in from the hall outside. Right, okay. I'll be right there. Junpei turned on his heel and left the quiet, somber room. Ominous, ain't it? They took the elevator up to C deck. Once there, they headed back toward the main hall and the central staircase. It didn't take them long. Junpei found Seven and Lotus waiting for them. They didn't look happy. We've got a problem. Clover is gone. Junpei and his 3 companions looked at one another. He turned back to Seven and Lotus. What do you mean, gone? Santa, Ace, and June had their own questions to ask. When? Why? You 2 went into door 1 with Clover, didn't you? Seven and Lotus responded as best they could. Yeah, we went through the door together. But Clover barely spoke to us. She just did her own thing the whole time. There were 4 rooms on the other side of door 1. She wouldn't let us into the...
she wouldn't let us into the 4th room.
She just said, I'll take care of this one.
And shut the door.
She must have blocked it with something on the other side.
We waited for a while, but Clover didn't come out.
We called for her, but she didn't answer.
So I kicked down the door and we went into the room.
But...
it was empty.
Clover wasn't there.
There was a door on the other wall.
And it was open.
We figured she opened the door and left by herself.
We ran after her, of course, but...
well, obviously we didn't find her. You figured that much out.
Clover's gone. Junpei thought for a moment. When did this happen?
We got here just before you.
You certainly have excellent timing. So you haven't searched anywhere other than near the staircase?
No, we haven't.
Finally, Ace spoke. His voice had an edge of resolve and concern.
Very well then, we'd best separate and look for Clover. We haven't much time left. Let's begin.
There were quick nods all around and the 6 remaining players spread out. Junpei and June ran into the central hospital room and looked around. She's not here. No, she isn't. They searched a little longer, but with no luck. They couldn't find Clover. Finally, they gave up and left the central hospital room. Slowly, they made their way back to the hallway. At last, they reached the stairs and Junpei spoke. Alright, I'm thinking we should probably split up. I'll head back to the stairs and take the elevator down to E deck. June, you can take the stairs up to B deck. Alright. That sounds good. But, What? Could you stop calling me by that code name when we're alone? Huh? Oh, sure. Right. I'll do that. There was a reason Junpei persisted in calling her June, even when they were alone. Although, perhaps not the best reason. He was embarrassed to call her by the nickname he'd used when they were children. Canny. 9 years ago, it came naturally. After all, they were children. But now that they were adults, it felt strange. Regardless of what he might hope for, to call a woman he wasn't dating by such a childish nickname felt odd to him. Of course, to call her Miss Kurashiki would be even more awkward. Simply Kurashiki would seem a little brusque. And although he couldn't put his finger on why, it felt somewhat forward to call her Akane when they hadn't seen one another for so long. In short, it was simply easier for him to call her June and leave it at that. Alright, I'm going then. Yeah. Be careful. Canny. June, or perhaps more appropriately, Canny, blushed and smiled. You be careful too, Jumpy. I love that they changed the name thing. Yeah. Got it. Take care. Junpei looked after her for a moment as she ran up the stairs, then turned around and took off for the hallway. Tragedy always strikes when one least expects it. But to wait for a man to stand before striking him down seems almost crueler than dealing the fatal blow while he lies on the ground. A light in a dark place, Jun's smile had given him hope, both for escape and possibly for something else. It was that hope that raised his spirits just enough that they might soon be fully dashed. He opened the elevator door, and there she was. A woman sat, slouched against the wall. Lotus. Junpei felt his blood turn to ice. Her body was limp, and her skin smooth and pale as always. Was covered in bright red blood. Junpei felt his chest constrict. He couldn't breathe, and his legs began to shake. A slow, cold drop of sweat trickled down his back. He felt his stomach somersault. Junpei's mind went blank, all his thoughts replaced with endless, hissing white. Driven by little more than instinct, he began to walk toward Lotus, slowly. Each slow movement of his stiff limbs brought him closer to her corpse. Finally, he stood next to her. Robotically, he bent down and put his hand against her neck. There was no pulse. No rise and fall of breathing. She was slightly warm. Something, somewhere in Junpei's broken or shaken mind, told him that meant that she had been killed recently. Yes, Junpei thought, his mind slowly returning. She had been killed. Someone had killed her. There was a deep cut on the left side of her chest. Blood still oozed from it, although clearly her heart had stopped beating some time ago. The weapon had been a knife, then? Perhaps she had been stabbed in the heart once. She would have died immediately. He took little comfort from knowing she must have suffered very little. Only then did Junpei notice. Lotus's bracelet was gone. Lastly, let us discuss how to remove the bracelets. There are only two ways to do so. 1, you escape from this ship. 2, your heart rate reaches 0. In other words, once the bracelet is taken outside the confines of the ship, or detects that its wearer's heartbeat has fallen to 0, it will shut down automatically. Was that why the killer had ended Lotus's life? So that they might have the number 8 bracelet? If that was true, then the killer was whoever wanted the number 8 bracelet. Perhaps more accurately, the person who had gained the most by obtaining bracelet number 8. Who is that? Who would benefit the most from the number 8 bracelet? The thought had only just entered Junpei's mind when he heard a noise. A sound like a sharp knife cutting through wet meat. It struck him as strange that the noise came from inside his own body. A moment later, the pain hit him. It wasn't merely pain, there was heat. Extreme heat as well. He felt as though molten iron had been splashed against the side of his body. Finally, his brain made the connection. He had been stabbed. But where? His body was quickly going numb. He couldn't tell where the knife had met his flesh. Given the circumstances, however, he had most likely been stabbed in the back. Whoever had killed Lotus had now done the same to Junpei as well. That is a fucking line. Like, okay. His voice was little more than a weak groan. With what little strength he had left, Junpei turned his body, trying to catch a glimpse of his attacker. But as he did, the knife dug itself in deeper, twisting viciously. Yeah. He collapsed to the floor, a puppet with its strings cut. His arms and legs lay where they fell, oddly twisted and awkwardly positioned. Junpei's body was entirely numb. He could feel the blood leaking out of him, but nothing would move. Nothing save his eyes. As he lay on the floor, his life ebbing away, Junpei finally saw his attacker. 2 tiny images of the killer reflected in his eyes. With that recognition came nothing. He felt no emotions, not anger, not sadness, not regret. The paralysis that had claimed his body had reached his mind. His killer glanced down at his body. Then without a word, climbed into the elevator and was gone. His eyesight began to fade. The world grew blurry and began to dissolve into an empty white fog. The fog crept into the edges of his mind and worked inexorably inward. Soon it swallowed up the last that remained of Junpei's mind, and his consciousness left him. There was nothing more. Into utter emptiness he fell. Into 0. Whatever Junpei had been was gone. Bad end. Not really as fulfilling as the X ending, but But yeah, at least with that ending, we know that there are 2 9 doors. Meaning if everybody is there, they could get out together. But in that door, or rather in that room with the 2 9 doors, there was a coffin. And before Junpei could examine it, he left. But there was some weird knocking going on there. Interesting stuff indeed. But yeah, there's still some unanswered questions. And some new ones that have popped up. And yeah, things are getting really interesting. But that is going to be it for today. And with that, we are done. Keep information. Yes, I would like to keep that info. And that is a second ending down. We have 2 endings. Oh man, it's pretty great. So yeah, that was the knife ending. I guess I would prefer the axe ending, because that kind of leaves no ambiguity. But this ending does give us a lot of information about the whatchamacallit, just the number 9 door and how everything is situated in general. Well, yeah, I'm rambling on long enough. I will leave you to form your own hypotheses for the time being. And next week, we will start another path. I don't know where my level list is. Not level list, but like what I kind of want to go for next time. Let me see. Because, you know what? Yeah. I think I know what I'm going to do. Yeah. Because we have gone through every door at least once now, except for 2. And that is door 3 in the big hospital room, and then door 2 in the, well, like, just in the period after that, where it's like, oh, okay, you know, we got these 3 doors, let's decide on where we're gonna go, draw lots, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, we'll get started on that next time. Thank you all for watching, have a great day, and I'll see you next time for Loop 3 of Let's Play 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors. One more loop. Goodbye. Well, that by me saying that, that implies that this will be the final loop. But it's not. I'd say we're about halfway done with everything. But yeah, see you all next time. Goodbye.